Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis. What do you think we should do about giving campers the choice over how their own program runs?
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
A big thanks to our sponsors who make the CampHacker podcast possible. Imagine camp registration software that actually gives you more time to do what you love. With UltraCamp, you can effortlessly track attendance, manage staff, streamline registration, and more. Explore now at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. Why spend hours on your schedules only to find mistakes and missed activities for your campers? Let Camptivities do the heavy lifting and help you create the best schedule yet, without the mistakes and in less time. Come check out Camptivities, specifically designed for camps by camp people. Find out more at camptivities.com.
Hello, Camp Mavericks, and welcome to the CampHacker Podcast, brought to you by UltraCamp and the Camp Recruiting and Retention Playbook from Joanna Warren-Smith and me. I'm Travis Allison. I'm a summer camp marketing consultant specializing in getting parents to open, read, and act on your emails and other communications.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Hudson. I am the founder and director of Camp Highlight, a sleepaway camp for kids who have LGBTQ parents. It is The Rock's favorite camp. Believe it or not, don't believe it. I've never met The Rock. I'm also a camp consultant and an all-around good time guy.
Hi, my name is Dan Weir. I spent 25 years operating summer camps, and then I switched to the dark side of providing support services because I'll never say the word consultant. I work with everything from summer camps and nonprofits, and I have a separate entity that works especially with Y-Day camps called Day Camp Community.
What's up, y'all? I'm Jack Schott. I'm the founder, and I do other stuff for the Summer Camp Society. We're a group of camp directors that get together and try and help each other do more cool stuff. Tend to be progressive, tend to be younger. And I founded Camp Stomping Ground in 2015 with Laura Kriegel, where we dug in to having choice at camp.
Choice.
And the way we got here is that Dan Weir and I were arguing about choice versus not choice for a long time. And I think I finally moved Dan over to the side of darkness.
Oh.
The side of light, really. The side of opportunity. The side of young people having less oppressive nature from grown-ups. Okay? The side of equity. The side of inclusion.
Okay, let's can we ease the listener in? Can we just slow down?
They're lowering their car radio right now. I apologize. Do you want me to just keep going off of Jack's energy and just
definitely? I want to define what we're talking about because some people won't understand even camper choice, or program choice, etc. So if you don't mind, one of you start there.
Let me lead this in.
Chris and I are looking forward to jumping in.
So I mentioned in my intro, I switched over to the dark side last year of support services, and it's very funny to go from operating to then seeing camps, and then immediately you can see signs right away when you walk on a property, and it's different than an ACA site visit. ACA site visit, everyone's putting the best foot forward. You don't do that when you're having hired services or just a friend drop by, because some of them were just friend visits. And the truth is, all the consultants call each other in between the summer. They never share like what camp, but they share notes just because you see trends. And so I'm calling Jack, driving from New Hampshire to New Jersey, and I basically kind of have this epiphany that like elective-based programming is meeting kids' needs in a different way than group-based programming. And I spent years running group-based programming, partly because it was logistically easy, and partly because I oversaw some pretty large operations, and I thought that was the way it had to be done. But I all matched up at the same time that I'm watching this giant shift with our culture of individualism to from collectivism to individualism, meaning that I'm watching basically kids not being able to be bored and watching people really want their individual needs and wanting it right now. And everything we get is like right in front of our face. And so it was funny. So I called Jack up and I'm telling Jack this. He's like, yeah, welcome to my side. I've been saying this only forever. And we talked for about 3.5 hours until I had to go to the bathroom at a rest stop. And then I called him back. I was like, by the way, we're making this into a session, and we did it at 2 conferences, and it was wonderful. And that's it. So it's really group-based programming versus elective-based programming. And there's so much nuance into it, not only the operation side, but also just like the framing of it. And we get so emotionally tied to what we've done in the past, which I think is also interesting. But yeah, that's the tee up, is you should be doing more elective-based programming.
I want to make sure that the lingo is common amongst all of our listeners. So tell me what you mean by elective-based versus group-based. Is that the terms you use, Dan?
Yeah. So it doesn't matter day camp or overnight camp or sleepaway camp or resident camp, because that's lingo as well too, depending on where you are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I watch a stark difference in camper behavior, camper satisfaction, and staff satisfaction between the camps. Like, keep the kids together all day in one group. So it's typically separated by age and gender. They travel from one activity to another, do an activity, and then they travel to another one and do that. Versus the camps that are more elective-based, if not completely elective-based. And when I say the word elective-based, I mean camper's choice. You can have it pre-registration, like you use your CampMinder form and have it all synced out, or any of the other softwares, right? Or you actually do it more in terms of like you're letting the kids sign up when they come on the first day of your program, or you're even doing it just based on the period, saying, hey, we're doing this period and this period. Pick A or B, or even more choices than that. And just the autonomy and agency it provides youth is just so distinct, and it frames everything so differently that, like, I knew it should be a part of the camp day, but it's never been more stark to me. And Jack is like, yeah, I'd known this for a while. Never been more stark to me that's meeting kids' needs today. I think kids have changed radically in the past 5 years. And I could keep going, but I'm stopping myself there. So,
well, I think, Jack, you're certainly known in the industry. What you and Laura did to really talk about a kids first programming style. I really want to come back to individual versus collective, but let's just go with that. And you're some of the first to so strongly advocate for the kids having a lot of choice. Also coming from working for our friend James 2 years ago, when that was very radical with the stuff that James had done, and when you folks worked at Vanderkamp with him.
Yeah, I think that really the elective, something that's interesting about the words we use in camp around are not universal. We say them like they're universal, and they aren't.
Yep.
Like, elective based tends to be used by private camps, tend to be wealthy private camps will use the term elective based, whereas like the Y might use choice based as or like, I mean, you see this with like bunks versus cabins versus groups, like different things all often are very similar, but have like nuance, and I say different things. So when I think about it, what I'm talking about is who has the locus of control in any given moment. Do I, as the camper, get to decide how to spend my time, or is someone else making decisions for me about how I spend my time? And like at Stomping Ground, we are like pretty far on the end of the locus of control is with the camper as much as possible, but not all the time. Everybody's got to be supervised, right? Like that's a law in New York State. Everybody's got to be supervised. Also at Stomping Ground, everybody goes to the dining hall to eat meals. Also at Stomping Ground, there are bedtimes. There wasn't the first night of camp in 2015. And then Chris's co-founder, Jackie, saw Laura and I talking about this at Tri-State and said, you know what? No bedtimes. These people are outside their minds. Let me send my kids. And they've been longtime campers at Stomping Ground. But so like, and I'm not at Stomping Ground at the moment, so I don't know the exact nuances of where they exactly are at any given time. But the goal of Stomping Ground from the beginning was, how do we give kids as much control over each moment of their day as possible? And at summer camp, at sleepaway camp in New York State, that is not the only thing that we do at Stomping Ground. There are check-ins that happen after after breakfast, after lunch, before kids go to bed. There are it's not total Lord of the Flies at Stomping Ground by any stretch of the imagination. However, there is a push toward as much choice as possible, as much of the locus of control being with the individual as possible, with a shared mission around radical empathy that I think creates collectivism with individuals. Chris.
To be clear, right? When you say the locus of the controls with the campers, they don't get to control the schedule. They just get to control their activities during specific points in the schedule where there are options, right?
So, sort of. Stomping Ground has a model that is basically, it's not exactly this exactly, but it's basically every hour there are a set of options that kids can choose from, let's say 6 options. But if you don't want to go to any of those options, you can hang out in downtown Stomping Ground, which is like a recess area. There's Gaga, carpet ball, arts and crafts, da 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 da. Or you can sit and do nothing. Nothing, quote unquote, nothing. Hang out in a hammock and do whatever. So Stomping Ground is quite far on the spectrum of where kids can choose their choice, but not, I was at a camp this summer for 2 weeks called Not Back to School Camp in Oregon. If you want to go wiling out, what are kids doing? That's like totally wackadoo. Not Back to School Camp full of unschoolers. Sign me up. It was awesome. And it's way further on the choice model. So I'm not sure how we don't. My intention is not to be out here trying to radicalize people on like the most wiling out version of this. I do love it. And I think that we can do more to give kids more power, more control, more autonomy than we believe is possible. However, I also think that if we just start letting kids choose whether to go to archery or arts and crafts, the stakes are very low.
Yeah.
Correct.
Why? I'm waiting for the really good argument for why we wouldn't do that. And here's some of the arguments that I hear. Dan has given them to me often, which is like, well, if we let kids choose, then they'll make less friends. I don't agree.
Yeah, I told you that one. Yeah.
Yeah, you made me that argument. If we let kids choose, then they won't be exposed to all the different areas of camp. Okay, good point.
So far, I'm on Jack's side. Sorry, Dan.
No. So I'm going to talk about this paradigm shift that I had. Not make it about me, but because
let's talk about your conversion, Dan.
Yeah. So all right,
revival podcast now.
When Jack and I started talking about this, yeah, exactly. It was just this Crossfire camp version for anyone gray hair remembers that awful show. So years ago, I'm saying this to Jack. I think it's also like, I grew up at my camp, and you tend to subscribe to your own beliefs in these moments, right? Like you just love what you're doing so much that you're so passionate about it. And so I was like, no, I'm advocating for this because I really believe in it and I see it work. I'm not the only one on this call. We've watched social skills just drop dramatically, not only amongst children, but also amongst adults. And I really used to believe that if you have a shared experience amongst people and they're all in this stage of new, that's kind of a leveling ground, and that they kind of have the shared experience together. And then it basically allows for them to open up because they're all trying something new. My wife has this all the time. She teaches pottery, and like she gets like these people in there have never done pottery before and they have a great time. But the social skills has declined so much that their confidence is shot. And so kids are almost not engaging anymore with things that they consider risky because they don't even have the basic confidence level of taking on previous tasks. So I really believe in this, like that we basically almost have like a skills lag. And frankly, a lot of it stems from boredom because we're overstimulated. We're all overstimulated. I've gotten 6 notifications just while we've been on this call. That's even just since we were recording. We were on the call before we hit record, right? So like we're just constantly being fed these little like indicators that we're wanted. And then for us to feel awkward or to feel not confident, and it really just shatters us. And so I love the fact that the camper choice is automatically teeing the person up for the fact that you chose this, right? So that means that there's some part of you that is feeling like you see yourself there, and it's kind of rising your perceived notions of competence. And then you might be awful at the actual activity, but like I just watching that. And so like I look at these kids' behaviors, and this is a funny story. We had my wife was a camp person too at heart, and so for our 8-year-old's birthday, we had everyone come over. Meaning she had a dozen friends come over, so we had a dozen 8-year-old girls come by for basically 3 hours, and we gave them choices along the way. It was great, but any time that they felt like they didn't have a choice in what they were doing, they were tearing down our house. They were literally tearing down our house. They could not take being bored. And so when I talk about this topic, it's very personal to me in the sense that like we need to meet where youth's needs are. And our industry sometimes gets stuck, and this is how we've done it, and it works. And I think this is more of an answer to meeting kids' needs than ever before. When I used to argue with Jack about this, I would think about my daughter who loves structure. My 10-year-old loves structure. And I think the answer is really a hybrid at the end of the day for some camps as well. But like, I really look at this as meeting children's needs. It's also, frankly, your camp should be full right now. If your camp isn't full, it's either a marketing issue or a program issue. It's one of the two. But never hasn't been more apparent that kids need camp and benefit from camp. And I just think it's our job to adapt to kids' needs. That's really it. So, it's a bit of a rant, but
Travis, you hear this, and we're all sort of smelling our own farts right now, right? We're all kind of going, yeah, choice, which me, I love to hear. Because it's not how everyone has always interacted with this idea in the camp world. But Travis, you work with a lot of camps. What are the barriers? What makes this hard? Why is this still something that we're spending time digging into? There must be reasons.
Yeah. I'll give you a couple of perspectives on that, and I admit that a lot of them are because that's the style of camp that I know. And so why not make this switch to just having your kids choose in each period? I think that some camp directors feel the absolute need to be able to answer a parent's call at any time of the day and say, I know where your kid is. So I think that's one thing. And if there's choice, it might be written down on a piece of paper. You might have to chase down a clipboard and or call out to arts and crafts or something to find a kid, just so you know. And I don't think a camp director would feel comfortable saying to a parent, I don't know, can I call you back? So I think might be one of the concerns with that, is just being able to say. And I think the right answer to that is, I don't know, I'll figure it out and I'll call you back. I think we should be able to say that to parents, because the kid should have that little freedom, and the parent should have the experience of having a time at camp where they don't know where their children are all the time. They've just committed to a safe environment. They've put them in there. So that's one argument that I would definitely hear. My own experience growing up and as a camp director, and look, I was a camp director last 15 years ago, so my experience is elderly, not current. But I have seen I have seen all sides of this since getting to do, as Jack said, getting to see lots of camps in action. So our experience was, we wanted that group or unit or cabin or bunk to go to have the conversation. That was the important part for us, was to have a conversation amongst the people in your group and say, this is what I want to do. Work through the problems of, well, I want to do this and I don't want to do this, and basically try to sort that out over the 6 days that they were with us. So that conversation was the important part for us. Not that they went everywhere as a unit, but that is, it was just sort of the unit style was what we grew up with. And so one of them to have the practice of that conversation. Now, having said that, I have seen, and I started to see things that made me think that there were other great possibilities, and then had several conversations with Jack and Laura while they were talking things through, and with James as well. And one thing I noticed is that short camps, 5-6 day camps, tended to do more unit focused stuff, and then individual programming more for longer camps that were 2 to 4 or 6 or 8 weeks long. And I love seeing kids who are 7 or 8 having the independence to walk from one side of the camp to the other, to go from the waterfront out to the climbing wall, and had being responsible for making sure they had their own closed-toed shoes. And like, I loved seeing that, but I saw that work better at a longer session camp. So that's a couple of perspectives on it. And but I think camper choice and the objective of free play would have been quite appealing to me as a camper.
Am I struggling?
Go for it.
I'm struggling to like, this is like one of those conversations where I'm like, well, of course the children should choose what they do. Like I'm trying to see it from the other point of view. But also, like, this is why I asked the clarifying question before, is like making sure we're not talking about free play campers run amok, because Jack had to apologize and be like, it's not like it's Lord of the Flies. And I was like, I wasn't even dreaming it would be. Like, I dream this chaos is being contained on either side by time markers, right? Because like you said, they all have to eat at the same time. Or they all have to go to bed at roughly the same time at Stomping Ground. So, okay, I love being intentional about everything at camp, right? So if we are doing it by unit or cabin, or if campers are choosing, my only question about, well, which one should we do is, well, why should we do either? Okay. So like, as a camp director, I'm a social worker and I have been a teacher. I try very hard to divorce camp from school as much as possible, because that's a lot of barrier especially for young kids. And I want them to experience the freedom earlier that school and schooling doesn't allow. Having them move in class, as it were, is just too much of a reference point to school, which it's my goal to break that as quickly as possible. So like, just the practical case for the choice makes sense. On top of that, on like the social emotional learning side of that, like allowing the children to explore that. What do I want to do? How do I express that? What do my friends want to do? How do I compromise and have that conversation with them in small groups? It's so rich. It's so much richer than you could have than moving the kids together in a unit. Now, and Jack mentioned this in the chat, like parents who are like, where's my kid right now? You have to tell me right now. No, don't take a breath. I need to know right now where they are. That is a marketing problem. First of all, parents need to know that they cannot assault you like that. And I'd have to say, like, I've never, ever, in like 30 years of being on a camp and 13 directing a camp, like never, ever have I received a call from a parent. And they're like, they all ask, because they will. Where's my kid? What are they doing right now? My answer has always been uniformly, I don't know right now, because my job isn't to be your kid's backpack. You know what I mean? Like, I've got other things to do. That's just like a communication problem with parents in general. And as far as like the other thing you brought up, Travis, as far as like working through, how do we work through this problem? Like, it doesn't have to be unit based. I think it's much more impactful, and it has so much more rich room for growth if the child has that conversation with people they want to engage with their friends, because that's really where the work is going to be.
But I think, Dan, I know you got a point, so I just want to hit Chris's and then I'll hand it over to you. My way of thinking at the time was, do we go for friendships that are deep or friendships that are wide? Like, if you have a group that you're spending 6 days with and you have to have very difficult conversations, you can build trust within that group versus a wide. So lots of kids that you're seeing lots of times, you're not repeating sessions necessarily. Like, you're not going to canoeing with the same group of kids every afternoon. So I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that was our thinking at the time, is, do we give them an opportunity, a safe place where they know people? Dr. G has often talked about camp having kids needing like a safe touch point. They can explore groups if they have their parents there, just go in and check with and then go back out. So that was kind of our thinking. I want to take a second and thank UltraCamp for sponsoring the CampHacker podcast this episode. We're grateful for their support for the season and the last ones and before that. There's something exclusive that UltraCamp is offering just to CampHacker listeners. You can get it. You can get two things. You can get a free tool book called the Marketing Toolbox. That's the free guide. So it's available on that special CampHacker website as well. It's been updated for 2024 and will work as you're prepping yourself for the next marketing season. So it's worth downloading even at this point in the year. And the other thing you can do at that link is book a free demo. If you are getting more and more frustrated as you get closer to the summer with your camper registration software, with what it can do, then go to ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker to book a free chat and download their free options. UltraCamp has a lot of transparency and a lot of flexibility, specifically in their pricing. So it allows you to pick the stuff that you need to help you do your job well, and then get on to the focus on your staff and campers. With UltraCamp, you have a low minimum entry, and you have clear pricing with no hidden costs, no surprises in your pricing. There's also some flexible payment terms that you can use, and there are no long-term contracts. So you can do it, you can experiment with it, you can see if it suits you, and they will walk you through how to do that exactly at ultracampmanagement.com/camphacker. Dan, I cut you off. I want to hear what you wanted to say.
No, I just wanted to share another story. So Jack and I did this presentation twice. We did it at first at Campfire, YMCA Campfire, which is basically 250 folks, Southeast, a lot of day camp folks, a lot of people that were voluntold to go to a conference because they used to run childcare, and now they're going to run day camp. And so Jack and I are, he just did his keynote. He walks in, and the nice thing about team presenting is like you really can play off each other. And so we're playing off each other, and somebody in the audience in the group asks, well, what do I do if it's a one staff member and 25 kids? Like, how do I pull this off? And I remember Jack looks at me and he's like, and I was like, I'll take this one. The first thing I do is I teach you how to talk to your boss about getting you more staff, because having that high of a staff ratio is not realistic. And I recognize there's probably a lot of camps here ACA accredited that are listening to this, but Jack and I have often talked about equity, and you talk about it so well in your observations as well, Jack. So I want to push it to you when we talk about like the price point of this as well, and expectations and how that correlates to equity.
Well, if you just look at camps that charge a lot of money, almost none of them are making kids stay in groups all day going around. It's just not happening. We only do this to poor kids coming to camp. It's like, oh yeah, well, we'll give Black kids a free camp experience and we'll tell them what to do all the time because we know what to do. It's the same in schools. It's like, no disrespect to KIPP schools, disrespect to KIPP schools, but they're just going around just being like, we know what's best for poor kids, so we'll tell them what to do, as opposed to all the rich kid schools are Quaker schools and sort of softer progressive schools that are trying to figure out how to meet kids where they're at. And so like that's not totally true. There are military schools that cost a bunch of money. There's whatever. But in general, across the board, wealthy public schools are trying to give kids more choice, more opportunity to choose their electives and things like that. And schools for poor kids aren't. And so we're just continuing that at camp. So but back to what Chris said, which was I want to know why. I'll tell you why to run group programming. Forced group programming, and I'm going to call it forced group programming because that's what it is. It's forced. You're forcing kids to do stuff. At Stomping Ground, they force the kids to go to meals together. They do. I was trying to name what we do. We compel them.
The semantics are dramatic here, Jack.
It's not a fight.
We force the kids to eat.
Well, we force the kids to go to the dining hall. We don't force them to eat at Stomping Ground. We force them to go to the dining hall. Okay. If they want to opt out, it becomes really complicated. Okay. We've got to do all kind of things. Stomping Ground has like 100 social workers. Like everybody there is on their way to becoming a social worker. Like it's like everybody's so soft and wants to love everyone. Like don't get me wrong. I'm not out here trying to be like, but that's what happens. Like you don't have a choice, so you're forced. Those are the rules. And so, but like if we're looking at it like why are we doing it? If we're going to do group programming, what we are saying is, kids, I think it's really important for you to learn what your elders think is best for you. As a kid, life is going to be hard. Let's make sure it's hard here. So you get used to it. These are not necessarily the wrong. I'm not saying that this is wrong. This is a thing that we're saying. We're saying grown-ups know better than you. Respect. Listen to what you're told. Some things are going to be hard. You can you can have grit and you can get through it. These are things that can be taught. It's sometimes worthwhile to do things that you don't want to do. I do things I don't want to do all the time. And a group-based programming is reinforcing those ideals. They're saying you can get over it. And choice-based programming is reinforcing this idea that decision-making is the number one skill that we need to learn as we grow up. The world is becoming more open. There are more choices. We have to learn how to make decisions, how to manage phone time, how to manage screen time, how to choose whether to be on TikTok or not, whether to, decision-making to me is the number one skill that we need to learn so that we can see how our decisions impact ourselves and the other people around us. And so if that's what we want, if what I'm hoping for kids to learn is how their decisions impact themselves and other people around them, I have to give them a chance to practice that. There are so few places on the planet where that is something that kids get to practice. Chris,
Jack, you had, when you started that off, you were making an economic argument. Is choice-based programming versus unit-based programming, is there an economic difference in running programs like that?
I think that there are camps that operate coming from a childcare model, and they have somebody that above them that said, yeah, this just works. It's not actually best practice. And I think I have it's very funny. Like, a lot of the work I do with folks is like gently re-educating them is the short version. Like I do staff trainings. I help, like camps and sales and marketing, but a lot of the work I'm really doing is working with nonprofits and helping them re-educate on what the concepts of camp, what they think camp is and what they think a camp program is, and trying to make them better, because when you look at the fundamentals of why their program's missing the mark, or why they have high risk issues, or why, frankly, they don't get the big donor base, or, or they want to charge more tuition so it's sustainable, it's just like all these things kind of play into each other. And it's frankly, it's easier, if you have two jobs, if you have a comma in your job title or 3 commas or 4 commas in your job title, which many of my nonprofit friends do, I feel for you. And it's sometimes easier to do the group-based programming as well too. And I think everybody always wants to do right by kids, always. And I think we all have big hearts, but I also think that where kids are today, their needs are met more by involving a bit more choice. You could certainly have group-based programming. I'm not saying scrap it, but I am saying that the parallel with equity is very interesting to watch. And it's a lot of things in life. It's everything from like hotels to restaurants to any other forms of service, right? So we got deep. We got very deep.
It got wide. I think there's definitely a space for group-based programming. Absolutely. And I mean, just to be clear, I'm not saying that one is bad and the other one's good. I'm just saying there's advantages to each, depending on what your program is and what your goals are. Because you can have your entire group of campers do one thing. The way you scaffold to that, the way that you build to that, you can still give them control to certain degrees. I mean, I don't have to design a program right now on live on air, but like you could figure out a way to introduce choice even to something that is like a mass group thing, because again, I'm always coming from the SEL angle. Like, why are we doing this? How is it enhancing the children? Like you said, Dan, like there's the correct answer. That's right. There is a correct answer. And here it is like, it's going to be a mixture of both of these things because there's things to learn here. I think any one choice, there's no camp that goes one way. And not that anyone was suggesting that, but even at Stomping Ground, and they have to force the kids to go to the dining hall and maybe not to eat, but that's just a supervisory problem. That's a real life practical thing that the kids have to do. You know what I'm saying? So they all have to be in the same place at the same time. Now, when we do that around activities, we can be really thoughtful about one, how that's presented, two, how that plays out. If it really is all right, kids, we're going to archery. Let's all march there. as opposed to at the beginning of the week on Friday, we're all going to do something together. The options are archery, arts and crafts, or crocodile wrestling. And then they have all week to do all of their in-group and out-group stuff, right? The real world, real life stuff of trying to bridge gaps and compromise to have that single choice at the end of the week, what they all do. Okay, don't crocodile wrestle at your camp. Unless you're in Florida, then do whatever, because apparently the laws support you. But what I'm trying to say here is that like we can design whatever we want as long as we're intentional about it and it serves the children. Full stop.
Chris, I'm with you on that. And here's where I sometimes push back. I think that we say the word intentional, and then everyone just, it's like saying like the insurance company said, or safety first. Everyone just starts nodding. It's like, oh, just be intentional, and everyone just nods and agrees. And I agree with you. Let's be intentional. Where I want to push people a tiny bit further is often in camp, the word intentional gets conflated with I am the grown-up who has control over the outcome. We say, I'm being intentional, and therefore I'm telling kids what to do more. So what they do is what I believe should happen. Is my take on the word intentional. It's not necessarily what you're saying. It is what sometimes is said. It's
When
not
I
what you're
said,
saying at all.
I mean thoughtful. Just to be clear. Yeah, I mean thoughtful.
And so I agree with you. There are if we're going to say we're going to do group-based programming, then let's be intentional about it. And then let's be willing to debate whether or not it's more, whether it's more intentional or not. So like Travis says, I think friendships get deeper when you are in one group for longer, as opposed to having choice to spend time with people. Let's debate it. Let's debate whether we believe that's true or not. And Travis and I could debate that for 30, 45, 3 hours on air. We're not going to do that right now, but it becomes something. Now we can have a debate. And that, to me, that's the important thing, is that we are trying to be more intentional by debating the ideas, because we're saying this is the direction we want to go. I could be proven. I believe that decision-making is the number one skill. It's the mother skill that we need to be helping kids develop right now. However, in a new world, 10 years from now, the number one skill might be something else. And then choice might not be the cornerstone of the idea that we should be having.
Hey, there's a great book called Range that I recommend to folks when they get down on themselves, like, oh, I have this wide range of job experience. I'm not specialized. And there's book Range is all about how you need a range and experience, right? And I think have it all, like, is the short version. But like, if you're really digging into group based and you want that to be your intentional thing, then read the book Range. Highly recommend it. It's a great book.
Thank you all. There's so many. Every one of these conversations, like, we have to have another conversation about this, because I'm really interested in the individual versus collective thing, and I think that how culture has changed around that. I think there's something deep that camp can do to explore that. And so just time-wise, we have to leave it there. So thank you for Dan and Jack for saying, hey, we have this really cool idea. Can we come and talk about it? It's great to have you both back. Definitely want to pick up on that one piece that's an outcome of this. So what we'll do now is move us on to our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
Dan, I'm going to go to you first, please. What is your tool of the week?
Yeah, I highly recommend. It's like $15 on Amazon or wherever you buy your electronics. But these lapel mics that hook up to your phones, just this summer, just start recording content. Interview kids about what they like about camp. It's actually, it's great for just sending clips home to families. But I'm just telling people to load up on content, because as you look at the ways to fill your camp in the future, it's about engaging content on multiple different platforms. And so if you have these mics, they're $15. They're actually really great quality. I've had these two for about a year and a half, and they're fantastic. And you could film solid quality interviews, or even just funny segments with your kids, 10 to 15 seconds long. a minute long, and just have a bank for your whole year of marketing. So I just highly recommend them. They're well worth it. And plus, it's just fun to mess around with your friends and your kids on them. So.
And they have a pretty good range too. So you could have the camera back and or put a mic on somebody to during a thing.
I've had 15 feet. No problem.
Yeah. And hey, you can do that TikTok thing where you, this is the podcaster in me, where I get shivers every time, just mad shivers, where people talk right into their microphone and it's so plosive because they're holding that thing here instead of clipping it onto themselves and getting the mic this proper distance. It's a side benefit of that tool. You can look like a TikToker when you use Dan's mics. Dan, thank you so much. I know that you have to run. If people need to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yeah. So there's Immersive First website where I work with any camp, work with any nonprofit. And then there is Day Camp Community, where I work specifically with wide day camps because they need turnkey solutions ready to go. They go from childcare to day camp over a weekend. And so I work with both of those. And then generally Dan loves camp on most media channels, but feel free to reach out. I'm just talking about camp all day, every day. And that's it. I got to go get the kids off the bus. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for being back at CampHacker. It's great to see you. As usual, you can check the show notes at camphacker.tv/podcast and see those links. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Jack, what is your tool?
Well, I love that Dan's pushing content marketing as the number one way to do that. And it relates back to what we're talking about with choice and equity. And all of what we're talking about is the more we're making content that is driving toward our values, the more people are opting into and are excited about us giving choice to kids or insert whatever other values you're trying to bring into your camp, so that when you get the call from the parent that says, hey, where's my kid right now? The answer is, they are probably at one of these three things, and and it relates back to we're getting more free range parents because we're selling a free range product. Okay, so here's my tool of the week. It's a sort of AI is going to change everything about how we run camp. It's drastically changing so much about what's going to happen behind the scenes, right? And so I want to know what's coming, and no one knows what's coming. But there's this like sort of famous quote that's the best way to predict the future is to invent it. And so I want to be listening to the people who are very connected to what's coming in AI, in tech. And so I encourage everyone to go find some tech podcasts so that you're hearing the people talking about building the future, because there's stuff that's already being done that we haven't yet gotten, but it's coming to us, right? It's on its way to us in camp, to you in your everyday life. And so one that I would recommend is it's called the All In Podcast. It's for billionaires talking about stuff. So take everything they say with a grain of salt. Like, listen, they say stupid stuff. They're relatively anti-woke. They are obnoxious about a lot of things. And they are seeing things about AI and about technology that I can't see. And so if I want to have access to that information, I've got to then take some L's on that they say stupid stuff about how RFK or
about people you care about.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, worth listening to. Chris.
Right on. Thank you. I appreciate the perspective, Jack. Because when you're saying listen to tech podcasts, my first thing was going to be, yes, been trying to find a tech podcast that isn't a bunch of straight white dudes talking about stuff. So that's not this case? Is that correct? They are not all white dudes. They're all dudes. But
they're all dudes. They're three white dudes and one brown guy. It's like it is.
And they're all billionaires.
And they're all billionaires.
So
I'm sorry, but that's fine. We don't have to agree with everything they say, and I'm not saying that I want to have that podcast. What I'm saying is they give me access to information that I normally wouldn't have access to, so that then I have pathways to make the world better in the ways that I believe it can be better. And so more information is better for me in that regard, even if it's, it comes with some bullshit.
Understood.
Sure. Yeah. Appreciate that. I appreciate the perspective expansion as usual, Jackson. Thanks. My tool of the week is a noise reduction earplug called Calmer from a company called Flair. Flair's known for making in-ear monitors for musicians, and they have these silicone earplugs that can go in that are that do one particular thing, which is cut down on certain frequencies of noise, but without reducing the volume of the noise. So it's really interesting because it's one of those things that you put them in and you can't necessarily tell the difference. You wear them for a couple of hours and pull them out, and you're like, oh, there's the difference right there. So I'm sure lots of you have seen these zillions of ads for loop earrings because they are everywhere. And Zoom earplugs are Zoom. Loop earplugs are fine for what they're fine for. They just don't work for me because I'm losing my hearing. I cannot handle any reduction in the amount of the volume of what's coming into my ears. I just have to cut out some of the stuff that I find painful, annoying, distracting, and these do that. And so, as usual, go to camphacker.tv/podcast for the notes on this. I am putting out there that my pick for this is the calmer earrings from a company called Flare. And I found them great. I wore them all day, every day at Tri-State. And I didn't have that feeling in the back of my neck that I get really cringy when I'm walking in the hallways at Tri-State. And there's a noise in that building that really gets my skin crawling. And I didn't have it. So that's my lesson. I also wore them all weekend when my grandkids were here.
What's the noise at
there's also
Tri-State?
It's just a super volume, high volume of voices mashed all together.
I guess that's fair.
In the hallways. And it
a
bounces around because everything's sort of flat and flat surfaces. But I have found walking around the hallways and trying to have conversations with people at something like conferences. I wished I had them because I went to a conference in January at a camp, and their dining hall was painful to sit in. The acoustics were so terrible there, which is like the camp that I grew up at, not the camp that Beth and I directed. The acoustics are terrible. Pardon me?
I find most dining halls do have bad acoustics.
Yes.
To be honest. I've seen a bunch.
So there you go.
Cool.
Wear some calmer earplugs. They're not plugs. The filters or whatever in your dining hall at camp or in other situations.
Yeah.
Perfect. Chris, what is your tool?
My tool of the week is actually something super practical. So, at the end of our camp season, and in this case, like recently, because I slowed around a lot, but we release a camp yearbook, and then it gets sent out to everybody who purchased one. So that's usually, lately it's been me. Someone else is going to take over, but it's been me designing the yearbook and then ordering them and then individually packaging them and taking them in like a little red, a little red wagon to the post office, and then paying hundreds of dollars to send it all over the country. And then one of my younger staff members was like, why don't you use Pirate Ship? And I was like, wow, this sounds like the beginning of a commercial. And listener, it is. Let me tell you about pirateship.com. Pirateship.com is something we did not use this year, but we are absolutely using in the future. Pirateship.com, if you have a scale at home and a printer, you can directly print out UPS and USPS labels on your printer. And the price, I was just checking while we were talking, the price differential, like each of these yearbooks, when I took it to the post office, was like $9 and change to send one. Pirate Ship is quoting me at $6.12, which would have been impactful when it comes to the budget of having to send out like a couple of dozen of these things. So I would buy a scale. I would get a yardstick or a meter stick, depending on which country you're in, and I would check out pirateship.com. Arg is the sound that pirates make.
So many lessons today, Chris.
Let me tell you something. I'm full of it.
Yeah. I'm going to take a second and plug one of the show before I say goodbye to these folks. I want to just make sure to draw your attention to the Camp Owners Podcast. What Howie and Kelly have done this year is bring in so many resources that are not just valuable for camp owners. So I invite you to search in your podcast app for the Camp Owners Pod. They are doing one show a month, and each one of them is incredibly impactful. And I've learned some really great things from the stuff that they're sharing there. So thank you to them for doing that. And if you're looking for that recommendation, I hope you go check that out. And I hope you also check out Jack's podcast. Jack, can you tell us what you folks have been talking about lately on the Summer Camp Society?
Yeah, thank you so much. Also, could not recommend the Camp Owners Podcast more. I love the CampHacker podcast. I love the Summer Camp Society podcast that I'm about to plug. That's ours. And if I could recommend only one, it would be Howie and Kelly's show. I love what they do to pull back the curtain on on what's going on behind the scenes from the mindset of a camp owner, and that impacts all the people at camp, regardless of whether they're camp owners or not. And so couldn't recommend listening to it more. On the Summer Camp Society podcast, we've been doing a lot of talking about how to support staff, specifically staff these in today's world. What does it look like to come to camp? Interviewing some staff, talking to people about how they communicate with staff differently, realizing that each generation of people has experienced different things as a collective, and therefore those experiences are going to make us all different. I remember sitting on a panel at the MAC conference with Travis, Beth, and Dr. G, and maybe I think Laura was there too. And we were talking about how millennials were the worst generation. Laura and I being the representatives of the like very specific millennial generation, and like clowning together about how each generation is the worst generation, every generation that comes up. And right now that's Gen Z is the worst generation, which is obviously silly, but they are just different. And so how do we support them as they come into camp? What do they need to be successful? What do they want to have the most fun? And so that's a lot of what we've been talking about. Thanks, Travis.
How do people follow up with you, Jack?
You can find me on the summercampsociety.com. Jack at the summercampsociety.com is my email.
And it always has the. Make sure you
it always has the. Yeah, it always has the for now, but maybe we should drop it like Facebook.
Or at least just buy the URL without the. So it's there and people can redirect it. Yeah, see? There you go. Communication
the
advice.
Marketing genius that we know and love.
Thanks, Jack. I really appreciate you being on again. Chris, how can people follow up with you or hire you or any of those things?
People can stalk me on social media. Follow me on Instagram at planetchris1. You can also email me, chris@planetchris.net, which you should do if you have any like training or camp related consulting needs. I can do it all. If you see me on the street, just stop me and be like, hey, are you Chris Hudson? And I'll be like, yeah, I am. And we'll have a conversation. That'll be nice. See you soon.
Thanks for the evening, friends.
The CampHacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Camp Pros. We love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, if you've gotten even one good idea from a Go Camp Pro podcast, a masterclass, from the Summer Camp Pros group on Facebook, at a conference, or wherever else, we ask that you give credit where credit is due. That way, we can encourage camp pros to keep freely sharing their brilliant ideas and make the camp industry better. Thanks very much.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.